So, I was going to make my next video a kind of tour of Ishgard to go over some of the location-specific lore I skipped over, as well as throw in some extra fun facts, but I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of a video like that. Turns out my thoughts are really unorganized without a script, though that's probably not a surprise to anyone who's ever watched one of my live streams before. So, in the meantime, we're going to continue on talking about the various city-states and the lore behind them. Today, we're headed for the Black Shroud to talk about the first city-state I ever experienced when I first started the game. Hello, I'm the Salt Exarch, and today we're going to be talking about Gridania. Much like my Ishgard video, we're going to be starting with the history of Gridania. Now, the founding of Gridania is way more straightforward than the founding of Ishgard, mostly because the Gridanians didn't lie about it for 1,000 years, but there's still a lot of interesting events leading up to the founding of Gridania. Taking things from the top, the settlement of the Black Shroud and the events that would lead to the founding of Gridania began back in the year 660. It was around this time that the Hyr began to migrate to Eorzea en masse, displacing the then-native Elezen. The Elezen wound up settling in places like the Black Shroud and Korthus. However, eventually, in 710, the Hyr also began to follow the Elezen into the Twelveswood, and tried to settle there as well, causing territorial disputes and conflicts that would last for a few decades. These conflicts came to an end when, in 740, the settlers of the Black Shroud angered the forest's elementals, and were forced to set aside their differences to protect themselves from the new threat. They began construction of the underground city of Gomorrah, which allowed them to avoid the elementals' wrath. They would remain there, thriving in their underground haven, with any attempts to expand outside of their subterranean home impeded by both the elementals and the Ixali. It would remain like this for a while, but around the year 1020, the elementals cast the Ixali out from the Twelveswood, potentially due to the Ixali's growing population trying to expand beyond their allotted territory. And the Gelmorans saw their opportunity. If they could find a way to commune with the elementals, they might be able to negotiate for land above the surface. After 50 years of trial and error, the Gelmoran mages were able to unlock the fundamentals of Conjury and commune their desires with the elementals. In exchange for defending the forest, the Gelmorans were able to live on the surface. They bestowed a glowing light to the leader of the Gelmoran mages, a Hyr named Joran Lightheart, to show their blessing. With the elementals' permission, most of Gelmora's population migrated out of the city and settled on the surface once more, beginning construction on a new, above-ground city, which they called Gridania. While the city and settlement was still being constructed, a child was born to Joran's household, presumably his direct offspring, though this is never directly stated. The child was born with horns, and as the years passed, the child never seemed to grow into a full adult. Moreover, the child could hear the elementals' thoughts and wishes, and could commune with them far easier. This child was the first of what would soon be known as a Pajali, a horned child born from a Huron family that serves as the emissary of the elementals. As Gridania became a fully established city, however, they began encountering some problems. The Ixali, unable to find success outside of the Twelveswood, began to long for their old territory. In 1360, they amassed their forces and began to march back into the Twelveswood, intent on taking back the land and using it for resources such as timber. The Wood Whalers of Gridania met their advance, but the battle claimed many Gridanian lives, and the God's Quiver was founded to monitor invasions upon the forest. Over a century later, in 1468, King Manfred of Alamigo suddenly laid claim to the East Shroud, and amassed a huge army to cross into Gridanian territory. Given the sudden and unexpected nature of this invasion, Gridania was forced to send in their smaller, much less prepared forces, the Wood Whalers and the God's Quiver. Naturally, they were defeated quite handedly, and the Gridanians were forced back as the Alamegans advanced into the Twelveswood. This became known as the First Battle of Tinolqa and the start of the Autumn War. Knowing they did not have the might or military resources to stop an invasion of this magnitude, the Gridanians pleaded for the other three city-states of Eorzea to lend them aid and military might to drive off the invaders. The other three city-states had seen how power-hungry King Manfred had been acting over his reign, and realized that his invasion wouldn't stop with just Gridania. In 1469, the three other city-states joined Gridania and amassed a great army to answer the Alamegan advance. The army was successful in driving the Alamegans back to the border of Gridania, and in the Second Battle of Tinolqa, they slayed the Alamegan general Gilbard, dealing a deciding blow to the Alamegan forces and successfully driving them back from Gridania's borders. This event would mark the very tentative, early beginnings of what would eventually become the Eorzean Alliance. After this, things were pretty quiet in Gridania. Not a whole lot really happens between the Autumn War and when the Alamegans were attacked and subjugated by the Garlean Empire. Following this, Gaius set his sights on Mordona, completely bypassing the Black Shroud using the Agrius. Of course, these events would see the formal founding of the Eorzean Alliance, as well as the Battle of Silver-Tier Skies, the destruction of the Agrias, Gaius' retreat from Mordona, and constant struggles with the Beast Tribe's primals. Most relevant to Gridania, this would also see the construction of Baelzer's Wall, a giant wall separating the border of the Gridanian-controlled Twelveswood and the Garlean-controlled Alamigo. Everything else after this is pretty much just stuff we're directly shown, and to be honest, Gridania plays a pretty limited and isolated role in the story, at least so far. So, with their history out of the way, let's move on to the Gridanians' culture. Given their relationship with the elementals, the Gridanians' culture heavily revolves around respecting the forest and honoring the elementals. Their buildings are not built with timber manually collected from the forest, but instead trees that were felled by the will of the elementals themselves. Gridania is also very small, and settlements usually don't expand out into the forest in order to preserve it, hence why many of the areas surrounding Gridania are camps rather than the much more structured settlements of Limsa, Ul'dah, or Ishgard. They have many traditional ceremonies involving honoring the elementals, and the Padjal are revered for their ability to listen to the elementals' wills. Many of Gridania's laws revolve around protecting and defending the forest. The Order of the Twin Adder was established specifically to allow Gridania to better fight off invaders. Initially, the Twin Adder was a separate organization that worked alongside the already established Woodwhalers and Godsquiver, but over time, the latter two organizations became part of the Twin Adder itself. The Woodwhalers focus more on the defense of Gridania and the other settlements within the Black Shroud, while the Godsquiver focuses more on external threats like invaders. The leadership of the city falls to the Seedseer Council, a council of hearers, or conjurers with the ability to commune with the elementals. Their role is to help keep the peace between Gridanians and the elementals, and make sure the city stays in check and doesn't do anything to risk their home in the Black Shroud. The Seedseer Council is led by the Elder Seedseer, usually with limited power and authority. However, during the lead-up to the Seventh Umbral Calamity, the current Elder Seedseer, Connie Senna, assumed total control due to the uncertain state of the realm, and currently still possesses absolute power in affairs of the Gridanian state. The laws of Gridania have definitely caused some tension and issues, both amongst those residing in Gridania and the Twelveswood as a whole, and also between Gridania and the other city-states. Due to their commitment to the elementals, they have a tendency to appear on the surface as stubborn and unyielding. Moreover, they have a very rocky relationship with the Keepers of the Moon Miqo'te, who also live and reside in the Twelveswood. Because of the Keepers' tribal hunting traditions, they often refused to follow Gridanian hunting laws, which were put in place to placate the elementals. The Gridanians and the Keepers had a very antagonistic relationship because of this, and even to this day, some of the Gridanians hold negative prejudice towards the Keepers of the Moon, despite many of the latter agreeing to adapt and conform to the Gridanian laws. In addition to the whole Keeper situation, the Duskwhite are also discriminated against in the Twelveswood. As mentioned in my lore video about the playable races, the Elezen that left the subterranean city of Gelmora became the Wildwood. However, some did not wish to abandon their old subterranean home and stayed behind, eventually becoming an entirely separate clan, the Duskwhite. The Duskwhite saw their Wildwood cousins leaving Gelmora en masse as an act of betrayal, while the Wildwood condemned the Duskwhite for their stubbornness. The two clans have a lot of bad blood between them, and given that the largest demographic of Elezen in Gridania are Wildwoods, Duskwhites who do live there are often treated unfairly, as seen with Folk from the Lancer questline. After stealing from the Lancers Guild with several co-conspirators, his guilt forced him to come clean, but when he urged the others to come forward with him, they pinned the blame solely on his shoulders, and no one trusted him when he told them the truth, partly because he was a Duskwhite. Despite its flaws, however, Gridania has managed to thrive within the Black Shroud, and continue to uphold a symbiotic relationship with the elementals, allowing them to live in one of the most dangerous, hostile parts of Eorzea's geography. I'd personally like to see more focus placed on Gridania in the future, especially given all the focus the other city-states have already gotten, but only time will tell if we'll get more information on this wood-shrouded city, or if it'll remain tucked away and kept safe by the elementals. And that brings us to the end of this video. I'm sorry for getting this out so late. This year's been a full-on conga line of inconveniences that have delayed this video for so long. First, my hard drive filled up, and when I went to transfer some of my older clips and videos I didn't need anymore over to my external hard drive, I realized I lost the cord to that and I had to order another one. Then I managed to spill a drink all over my keyboard, so I had to clean that out and let it dry completely, which took a few days and effectively left me without a desktop. And then I got sick and literally wound up in the hospital for a few days, so I was out of commission for like a week and a half. between that and trying to decide between doing this video or experimenting with the tour of Eorzea format I talked about in my last lore video, this video wound up taking much longer than I expected. I will definitely try to pick up the pace in terms of video production though. I know I said that last time and then all of this happened, but I promise you guys, I'll definitely try to get something out, even if it's a small joke video and not a full-on lore deep dive. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, do be sure to give it a like, drop any suggestions, questions, or comments down below, and subscribe if you want more Final Fantasy XIV content from me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.